Hello everyone, welcome again to the Age of Empires tutorial for the card game. So let's play Age of Empires 2. Today we will talk about the attack declaration phase, attack resolution phase, and we will go over the multiple different attacks. So you have assisted attacks, ranged combat, and you can also retreat, stuff like that. If we have time, we will go over the enlistment phase, discard and draw phase, and the allocation phase, which shouldn't be too long to be covering after that. And afterwards we will just simply play and see how far we get with the cards that we have. So for the attack declaration phase, if we take a look here, for example, we have that one over there, and this is an enemy unit that comes into a town and stands on this location. You can only attack enemy units that are on the square that you are at. So this archer can only attack the skirmisher here. And we will see what happens then. If there are multiple targets, you can choose whichever you like to attack. And all attacks must first be declared before resolving any attacks. First of all, the defender may declare a fast response to all of the attacks that are announced. So this means that he can has the opportunity to move each of their units in their village one space, not diagonally, to join a defense. Now villagers may not fast respond, and if an opponent's unit moves onto your building but doesn't declare an attack, you may still fast respond to that unit. Now there are certain cards that will increase the response range, so that's good. And also a unit that cannot enter the building square being attacked may not fast respond. Therefore, fast response only occurs when defending a building or villagers. Because remember that you can only have one enemy and one friendly unit on the same building. So for example, if my archer here was to attack a house, just a house, and the skirmisher wasn't on there, I could have fast responded with the archer next to it. But in this case, I cannot. Alright, so after the fast response is complete, the combat actually begins. And it lasts for 2 rounds, which will be explained later. If there is no unit or villager at the building being attacked, and the building doesn't have its own attack value, damage is calculated and subtracted from the building's health points. To calculate damage, multiply the tokens on the unit, on the attacking unit card by the attack value. This is the total damage dealt by the unit for 1 round. Damage is delivered on a round per round basis, rounding down to the nearest 10, so rounding down. So if you do 9 damage with a unit, it's rounded down to 0. Because 1 damage token on a building is placed for each 10 points delivered. If the damage taken on the building is greater than or equal to its health points, it is destroyed and placed on the discard pile. Not the snuff pile, but the discard pile. If the attacker is targeting a building that has villagers on it, so maybe the town center, the villagers may step in to defend. If the villagers on a building do not defend and the building is destroyed, the villagers are placed in the village pool to be reallocated later. If the villagers defend, all villagers on that card must defend. In addition, villagers may not enter combat against ram-type siege weapons. Now then, to calculate damage, it's a bit tricky. Every unit has tokens on it to represent how many troops are in that unit. So in this case, the archer only has 2 units attacking against 3 skirmishers. That's really not a good idea for the archer attacker, especially since the skirmisher has 12 attack versus archers instead of its regular 2. Now then, the health of the unit is 6. So what you have to do first is multiply the attack by the number of units. So we have an 8 attack, and then divide it by the health points, which is 6. So you get 1 point something, rounded down. So 1 unit here will perish. But the attacks are simultaneously, combat, damage, everything is simultaneously. So we will first see what he does against him. So 12 versus archers. 12 times 3 is 36, divided by 6 is 6. So 6 units will die, the entire unit is dead, while only 1 skirmisher is gone. That is how it is calculated. There's also an important other step in combat, that is ranged combat, which works a bit differently because ranged combat actually goes before regular combat. And I don't know why this step has been printed in the booklet behind the regular combat, because it seems rather silly. But ranged units have this little symbol here. So let's assume that we still have the 3 skirmishers here. And the attacker declared its attacks first, so we will do that. We will declare a ranged attack against the skirmishers. Now then, the skirmishers also have a ranged attack, so both are calculated simultaneously as well. If only 1 unit in a combat has ranged attack, then that unit calculates its ranged damage by multiplying the tokens by the ranged value and deals that damage to the opposing unit. If both units in a combat have a ranged attack, they both deal damage and take casualties simultaneously during the ranged combat round. Right, so let's take a look here. If we both have ranged attacks and we would both initiate ranged combat, even the skirmishers. Let's see what happens here. So we have 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times 3 is 9. Divided both by 6. Rounded down would be 1 casualty to each side. So that will be that. And then archers have the special ability that they can hit and run. So they can attack and then retreat after ranged combat to a different space. But yeah, since skirmishers also can have a ranged attack, they would still be damaged. Alright, so when the first round of attacks has been concluded, players can continue or retreat. And to retreat, you simply move 1 square. Now then, if you are on the fringe, you can move to no man's land and you are safe from attacks unless your opponent can attack in no man's land. You cannot move to a space that is already occupied, or where combat has been initiated this turn, so you have to retreat to a vacant space. So we have done ranged attack, which is a special extra combat step before the 2 combats. So now regular combat initiates and they can still participate and attack. So now we will have for attack, for melee, because you now have to look at the little X symbol, because we're now in regular combat. Divided by 6 does absolutely nothing to this unit. Then we have 2 times 12 is 24. Divided by 6 is more than enough to kill the lone archer. So that's only the first round, and in this case the defender wins and takes no casualties from this combat. Now, in the previous, you can also choose not to go to ranged combat, and then you would have the effects that we had earlier. 1 casualty for each. And then the second round would initiate, and then the archer would lose anyway. Alright, so we also have assisted attacks. So if an attacker has 2 units on adjacent buildings, 1 unit may assist the other unit with an attack on a building. And the booklet here has a nice example for this, so I will just read it out to you guys, and then we try to replicate it by cards. For example, if the attacker has a militia on a house and a knight in an adjacent barracks, and the militia declares its attack against the house, the knight could assist the militia and declare its attack on the house instead of the barracks. The primary attacking unit, the militia, that is located on the targeted building, the house, will complete its combat first. After this combat is finished, the assisting unit, the knight, will be able to assist with its attack only if the following two conditions are met. 1. The primary attacking unit, the militia, is the only unit remaining on the target building after the attack is resolved. And the assisting unit was not the target of a fast response. If the assisting unit does not meet both of the conditions, they may not assist, and they lose their attack for the turn. So, let's just make a nice... yeah, just like this. For example, the archer here is attacking the house, and this archer can assist by, instead of attacking the mill, also attack the house. And then first the archer on this side would attack, and then this side would attack. But if this archer was subject to a fast response, as we have seen before, it would lose the opportunity to assist. So that's basically it. Next up will be the enlistment phase. So what you can do here is construct new units, villagers and monks, or replenish units. Now we have seen some tokens on the cards, on the units like the archer and the skirmisher before, but how do they get there? We'll show you guys in this step. So first of all, we need to explain a garrison value. So here you can see the garrison value 10. So this means you can have a maximum of 10 units if you only have this one. If you have two cards like a barracks and an archery range, which both provide 10, then you can have a total of 20 units on the table. So let's assume this card is placed there. Now then, you can create an archer. Very nice, and it has a cost of 1 wood and 1 gold. Now then, if you want to play units on this card to make it stronger, like we have seen in the attack phase, you can have a maximum of 5 units on 1 unit card. And to do that, for every single unit you have to pay this. So if you want 5, you need 5 wood and 5 gold. For example, if we have that, we can place it on there like so, and then we have 5 archers ready to attack. Yeah, so we can place another archer with 5, and then we have the garrison maximum of 10. Then we cannot build any other units like infantry or stuff. We need some more buildings like that to do so. Right, you cannot build a unit card on a building that is already occupied. So if I want to have an archer there, I cannot build an archer there. Right, military producing buildings may only produce 5 tokens per turn. So for example, if you have 1 barracks, you may produce 5 militia tokens per turn. Then if you have 2 barracks and 2 militia cards in play, you may produce 10 militia tokens. So when you place, for example, this archer on the table, it has to be placed on the archery range. So if you have no more vacant spots on the archery range, you cannot build that. So you first have to make sure he moves to another place in the next round, and then you can produce more archers. Now then, if you want to, for example, if you have like 4 units on it and you want to replenish it to 5, there are certain things you need to consider. First of all, the unit must not have moved or have anticipated in battle during their turn, and it can not be replenished in your opponent's village or in no man's land. It doesn't have to be on the archery range per se. You can have it on another card to have it replenish, but just paying for the cost. So for villagers, there is a population limit to your village, and that is seen on the town center and also on the house. So you have now a total of 10 population limit. So you can have 10 villager tokens. If at any time one of these buildings, well, for example, the house is destroyed, you now have only 5 limit left. But if you have 10 tokens, you do not need to remove any of these tokens, but you cannot build new ones. You can only produce 5 villagers per turn, no matter how many town centers you have. 5 is the limit for a turn, to produce them. To build a new villager, you pay the cost. In this case, it is 1 meat, 1 food. And then you create a token that has the value of 4 health and 3 attack. They are being placed in the villager pool to be allocated in the allocation phase. We will talk about monks in a different video, but not for now. But you can also create them in this phase. Right, next up we have the discard and draw phase. Now during this phase you may discard as many cards as you want into the discard pile or snuffed pile and draw back up to 7. You may only discard and draw once per turn. No discard, draw, etc, etc. And then if you run out of cards, shuffle the discard pile, not including the snuffed pile, and make a new play deck. Since your discard pile is face up, if you discard a card, your opponent may look at it or any other card in the pile. All event cards must be played before this phase. So you can play event cards whenever you want before this phase. Right, next up is the allocation phase, and during this phase any unused villages from your village are going back into the villager pool. So in this case these would be placed over here because they didn't do anything. And also you have to remove 1 villager from any card being researched and place it back into the villager pool. When the last villager is removed, that card takes effect for the researches. Now then, if you have finished researching age advancement, shuffle your new age deck into your play deck. You also have the option of shuffling in your discard pile at this time. Important to note. And that's why I said you have to keep your cards the same sleeves. Not like I did right now. That's just silly. You can also decide in this phase what resources you like to produce in your next turn. If I had a lumber mill, I could say, well, I'll have 1 of them over here and 2 in my town center. Because you can pay some units, some events or other cards with a cost of villagers, just like researches. But you have to be able to use them, and you can keep them in your town center. Now again, to use them, not in your village pool. Make sure your villagers are in a safe place, because they can be attacked by your opponents. And once you have no more villagers left, you lose the game. Right, after this the turn is over and players alternate turns until 1 of the winning conditions is met. Like I said, the winning conditions are as follows. Destroy all enemy town centers or villagers. When you destroy your opponent's final town center, you immediately win the game. Also, if after destroying all of your opponent's villagers, that player cannot create additional villagers, that player loses at the end of their next turn. So that's important as well. They can still create villagers, but if they have no more means to do so, like if they have run out of food at the time, they lose at the end of their next turn. The second one was to advance to the Imperial Age and create a wonder of the world. A wonder takes 4 turns to construct, and when constructing a wonder, you will pay the costs associated to the card on the first turn of construction. The wonder enters play with 110 health points. On subsequent turns, the wonder continues gaining health points with each turn, as described on the card. And at the beginning of the 4th turn, the wonder is complete, and you must defend it for 6 of your opponent's turns. And afterwards, you win. And the third one is gather 5 different relics and enshrine them in your monastery for 6 of your opponent's turns. Relics are unique, and therefore only 1 copy may be in play at any time. So yeah, that's the winning conditions. That's the basics of the game. We will now just next up will be a video just playing the game for 1 full turn, or actually for a couple of turns, so you can see how the game works. Then in a later video we will discuss some more stuff like siege weapons, monks, conversion, healing, relics, multiplayer, and scenarios. So thank you all for watching, and yeah, see you guys next time. Bye bye.